Princess Catherine, they reportedly have a deliberate plan for Prince George, and they're determined to raise George to be a strong future king, according to royal author Robert Jobson, and according to his new book, The Windsor Legacy.
Moments of royal composure rarely crack, yet this one did. As Catherine watched, emotions surged when young George spoke to a child who had stumbled nearby. His words, gentle yet unexpectedly wise, cut through the noise, drawing gasps, then silence. Cameras caught Catherine's eyes glistening, her hand briefly rising as if to steady herself. Across the crowd, hearts softened, narratives shifted, and a future king suddenly felt very present. So, what exactly did George say that moved his mother, and why did it leave everyone stunned? The heart-stopping tumble. Amid the festivities, the calm atmosphere that had filled the room only moments earlier suddenly cracked, as if an invisible thread had snapped. Until then, everything had moved in a gentle, steady rhythm. Soft conversations, quiet laughter, the low hum of anticipation before the service began. People were settling into their seats, hearts relaxed, minds drifting. Then, without warning, the peace gave way to a moment no one expected. A small child appeared near the aisle. He couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 years old. His steps were short and unsure, the way young children walk when the world still feels too big for their legs. His eyes were wide, shining with curiosity and wonder, taking in everything at once. The glowing lights overhead flickered like tiny stars to him. The music echoing around the hall sounded magical, almost like it was calling him closer. For a child so young, it must have felt like stepping into another world. Drawn by excitement rather than caution, he wandered a little too far from where he should have been. No one noticed at first. Adults were busy greeting one another, adjusting clothes, checking phones, or simply enjoying the calm before the gathering officially began. The child moved freely, unaware of the dangers that surrounded him, edges, steps, and the hard floor beneath his feet. Then it happened. In a split second, his small foot caught on the edge of the aisle. It was a simple mistake, the kind children make every day while learning how to balance their growing bodies. But the result was sudden and frightening. His body tipped forward, arms reaching out too late, and he fell. The sound was not loud, yet it felt sharp, a soft but shocking thud as his tiny body met the cold stone floor. The room seemed to inhale all at once. Gasps spread through the crowd like ripples across still water. Heads turned quickly. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. A wave of concern moved from one person to another, passing silently but powerfully through the room. Faces tightened with worry, eyes widened. In that instant, everyone saw the same thing. A small, helpless child lying on the floor, stunned and exposed. Several adults shifted in their seats. Some stood halfway, ready to rush forward. Others instinctively leaned in, hands already stretching out, hearts pounding with the same urgent thought, is he hurt? The natural need to protect a child filled the air, heavy and undeniable. It was the kind of moment that reminds people of how fragile life can be, how quickly joy can turn into fear. Time seemed to slow down. That brief second stretched longer than it should have, as though the world itself had paused to watch. The child lay there, caught between tears and confusion, trying to understand what had just happened. Around him, the adults hovered in suspense. No one spoke, no one moved just yet. It felt almost like a scene from a film, where everything fades except the one moment that matters most. In that silence, questions hung quietly in the air. Who would reach him first? Would it be a parent? A stranger? Someone young or someone old? Would the response come from the person everyone expected, or from someone no one noticed before? There are moments like this in life, rare but powerful, when hidden courage rises to the surface. Moments when instinct takes over, and ordinary people are given a chance to act with kindness, bravery, and care. As the room held its breath, one truth became clear. Sometimes the smallest fall can reveal the biggest hearts, and the most unexpected hero can step forward when it matters most. What exactly did Prince George do that brought Catherine to tears? Was it an unexpected act of maturity? Let's find out. Prince George's spontaneous act of pure kindness. Before any adult had time to step forward or even fully understand what had happened, young Prince George was already moving. At only 12 years old, he reacted without panic, without noise, and without waiting for instructions. There was a sudden change on his face, a look of real concern that cut through the formality around him. In that brief moment, titles, tradition, and training faded into the background. What came forward instead was something far more human, a child's instinct to help another child. He reached the fallen youngster quickly, dropping to his knees beside them as if it were the most natural thing in the world. There was no stiffness in his movements, no sign that he was thinking about how he should behave. His calm felt steady and reassuring, like a quiet hand on a shaking shoulder. Leaning closer, he spoke gently, his voice low and kind. "Are you okay?" he asked, not as a prince, but as a boy who truly wanted to know. He held out his hand, waiting patiently until the child felt safe enough to take it. When they stood, George carefully brushed the dust from the child's coat, one soft swipe at a time, as though each motion carried a promise. "You're safe now. You're not alone." He smiled, not a practiced smile for the public, but a real one, warm and encouraging. He stayed right there, close and attentive until the tears slowed. The fear eased, and the child's face slowly relaxed back into a shy, relieved grin. Those watching nearby sensed immediately that this moment was different. It wasn't staged. It wasn't guided. There were no whispered instructions or signals from adults. People later said that George never once looked around for approval. He didn't glance toward cameras or search the crowd for familiar faces. His eyes were focused only on the child in front of him, filled with real worry and care. Protocol didn't cross his mind. Neither did appearances. For those few minutes, he forgot the weight of being watched and the future waiting ahead of him. Instead, he was simply being himself. That small act of kindness felt powerful precisely because it was so natural. Compassion like that cannot be taught through rules or speeches. It grows quietly, shaped by example, love, and gentle guidance over time. Perhaps in that moment memories of his own childhood flashed through his mind. Scraped knees, sudden falls, and the comfort of someone kneeling beside him asking the same simple question, "Are you okay?" Maybe he remembered lessons learned at home, where kindness mattered more than rank, and where caring for others was not an obligation, but a way of life. What made the moment even more striking was its simplicity. No grand speech, no dramatic gesture, just a boy noticing another child in distress and choosing to help. Yet that choice revealed something deep and lasting. It showed emotional strength, empathy, and courage, the kind that doesn't shout, but quietly steps forward when it's needed most. For those who witnessed it, the scene lingered long after the dust settled. An ordinary stumble became something unforgettable, transformed by a single thoughtful response. It reminded everyone present that true character often appears in the smallest moments, when no one is asking for it and nothing is expected in return. In that brief heartbeat, the world caught a glimpse of something rare. Not a future king in training, but a young boy guided by kindness. And in that simple act, one hand extended, one gentle question asked, he showed that real leadership begins not with power or position, but with compassion. When, where, and how did the scenario unfold? What occasion was celebrated? Let's delve into the details of the service where Prince George displayed kindness and maturity. The enchanted glow of Sandringham's Christmas service. On Christmas morning, the old stone walls of St. Mary Magdalene Church in Sandringham glowed softly, as if they were alive. Hundreds of candles lined the aisles and windows, their small flames trembling and shining against the gray stones. The light moved gently, throwing long shadows that seemed to tell stories from long ago, stories of kings, queens, prayers, and quiet hopes carried through the years. Time felt slower inside those walls, as though the past and the present had decided to meet and sit together for a while. The British royal family sat in their familiar places, just as generations before them had done. They wore well-cut coats, warm gloves, and colorful scarves that hinted at the joy of the season. Though their clothes were fine, There was also something comforting and human about them, like any family dressing up for a special day. The smell of pine from fresh decorations, mixed with the clean scent of polished wood, filled the church with a calm, festive warmth. It wrapped around everyone present, inviting them to pause, breathe, and feel thankful. As the service continued, Christmas carols rose into the air. The voices blended, slow and steady, then strong and bright, flowing through the church like a gentle tide. Each note seemed to settle into the stone walls, as if the building itself was listening. The music carried feelings of peace, faith, and belonging, reminding everyone why they had come. This was not just a yearly tradition. It felt like stepping into a painting that was still being created, where history, belief, and family life flowed into one another without effort. From the outside, everything appeared perfect and carefully planned. Every movement was graceful, every moment measured. Yet beneath this smooth surface, something more alive stirred. A quiet excitement passed through the pews, almost like a shared secret. Children fidgeted and whispered softly, swinging their feet and glancing around with curious eyes. Adults exchanged gentle smiles, looks that suggested shared memories and unspoken understanding. It was clear that everyone felt something special hanging in the air. This feeling was not loud or obvious, but it was powerful. It raised a silent question in every heart. What if something unexpected happened? What if, in the middle of all this order and tradition, a small, honest moment broke through, not a grand gesture, but something real and human? A laugh that came too quickly, a tear that refused to be hidden, a touch of the hand that spoke louder than any words. The church itself seemed to sense this possibility. The candle flames flickered a little brighter, and the shadows shifted again, as though leaning in to watch. The old walls, which had seen joy and sorrow, celebration and loss, stood patiently, ready to welcome one more true moment into their long memory. They had held countless prayers before, and they could surely hold one more story. In that sacred space, the line between royalty and ordinary life felt thinner. Titles and history mattered less than shared breath and shared silence. Everyone present, whether crowned or not, was simply human for a moment, gathered together on a winter morning. The tension in the air was gentle, but real, like the pause before a heartbeat. Something could happen, or nothing at all, but the waiting itself felt meaningful. And so the church waited. The people waited. Wrapped in candlelight, music, and memory, they stood on the edge of tradition and truth, ready for life to step forward in its simplest and most beautiful form. It was in that stillness that meaning quietly grew. Christmas was no longer only a date or a ceremony, but a reminder that warmth can exist even in cold seasons. Faith did not shout. It rested gently in hearts. Tradition did not trap anyone. It guided them, and family, in all its forms, became the simple miracle everyone shared, glowing softly like the candles, steady enough to last. In that glow, hope felt close, ordinary and strong, promising new stories beyond the old walls of history and time. How did Princess Catherine react to Prince George's act of kindness and maturity? Was she expecting it from him? Let's dive into the details of Princess Catherine's emotional response. Pride in full bloom. From a short distance, Princess Catherine stood quietly, taking in every second of what was happening before her. She did not move, yet everything about her reacted. The cameras found her face at just the right moment, and what they captured felt honest and unguarded. Her eyes softened first, as though something deep inside her had been gently stirred. Then came the smile, slow, natural, and full of warmth. A faint shine appeared in her eyes, the kind that comes when strong feeling rises without warning. It was not the look of a royal observer watching a public duty unfold. It was the look of a mother seeing her child with her heart wide open. She was not watching a future king playing his part for the world. She was seeing her son. She saw the little boy who once needed help tying his shoes, who listened to bedtime stories, who learned early lessons about being kind, fair, and thoughtful. In that moment, titles faded into the background. What stood in front of her was not an heir shaped by tradition, but a child shaped by love, care, and steady guidance. Her expression said it all. This was personal. As she watched, pride rose gently and settled across her face, blending with something softer and deeper, pure maternal joy. It was the quiet pride that does not boast, the kind that fills the chest and warms the soul. You could almost sense the years behind that look. The calm talks after difficult days, the reminders to think of others, the patient corrections made with care rather than force. Every small lesson seemed to return in that single instant, standing, tall, and alive. There was something deeply touching about how natural her reaction felt. She did not appear rehearsed or careful. She looked exactly like any parent who suddenly sees proof that their effort mattered. It was as though all the ordinary moments, school runs, shared meals, gentle advice, had come together to form something beautiful. Watching her was like watching the story of parenting itself unfold, quietly but powerfully. Her presence added a new layer to the scene, turning it from a public event into something far more intimate. Without speaking a word, she reminded everyone that behind the grand settings and long traditions is a family just like any other, a family that worries, hopes, teaches, and loves. Her gaze softened the distance between royalty and the public, making the moment feel closer, warmer, and real. There was meaning in the way she watched him, not with control, but with trust. She was not guiding him or correcting him. She was simply witnessing who he was becoming. That alone carried great weight. It suggested that her role, at least in that moment, was complete. The values had been given, the example had been set. Now, he was choosing his own actions, and those choices reflected well on what he had been taught. In her eyes, one could imagine quiet thoughts forming. Perhaps there was a silent smile inside her mind, a gentle sense of relief and gratitude. Maybe she thought of how far he had come, or of the man he might one day be. It was easy to imagine a simple, loving thought passing through her heart. This is my child. This is what I hoped for. That look did more than show emotion. It told a story. It showed the reward of patient parenting, of choosing kindness again and again, even when it is unseen. It showed the deep joy that comes when a child acts with goodness, not because they are told to, but because it feels right to them. In that single expression, Princess Catherine reminded the world that true legacy is not only about crowns or duty, but about character, love, and the quiet power of raising a child well. Was Princess Catherine the only one thrilled by Prince George's kind words? How fast did the news travel? Let's dig into the details of the single small gesture that inspired millions. The powerful ripple. What began as a quiet, almost unnoticed moment inside a softly lit church quickly grew into something far larger than anyone present could have imagined. Within hours, short video clips and simple photos of the encounter spread rapidly online. They crossed borders, timelines, and cultures, landing on millions of screens around the world. Comment sections filled up with emotion, people sharing personal stories, expressing hope, shedding tears, and asking thoughtful questions. In a digital space often crowded with outrage, sarcasm, and bad news, this small moment stood out like a warm light in the dark. So why did such a simple act touch so many hearts? Why did it travel so far, so fast? The answer lies in how real it felt. There was no script, no performance, and no sense of planning. It wasn't polished for cameras or designed to impress. It was just a child responding naturally to another human being in need. In a world where many public moments feel carefully managed, this one felt honest. That honesty cut through the noise. It reminded people of something deeply human that many fear is fading: pure, uncomplicated kindness. Psychologists explain that when we see genuine compassion, something powerful happens inside us. Our brains are wired to respond to it. Watching someone help another person activates areas linked to empathy and connection, often pushing us to want to do the same. It's like a spark jumping from one person to another. One kind act doesn't stop with the giver and the receiver. It spreads. A small gesture in a church can lead to someone offering help to a stranger on the street. It can prompt a neighbor to check on an elderly woman next door, or encourage a parent to pause, breathe, and show patience to a tired child. This is how kindness grows, quietly, steadily, and often without applause. What made this moment even more powerful was the setting and the people involved. The royal family carries a symbolic weight that few others do. Their actions are watched, discussed, and remembered. When kindness comes from such a visible place, it sends a strong message. Compassion is not a sign of weakness. It is not something reserved for private moments or hidden corners of life. It is a strength. A quiet one, perhaps, but strong enough to cross social lines, soften hardened opinions, and remind people of shared values. Prince George's gesture was especially striking because of his age. In a time when children are often underestimated or viewed as too young to understand the world's pain, his response challenged that idea. It showed that empathy does not depend on age, status, or education. It begins with awareness, simply noticing when someone else is struggling, and with the courage to respond. No grand speech was needed. No spotlight was required. The power was in the simplicity. In today's fast-paced and divided society, many people feel disconnected from one another. We rush past each other, absorbed in our phones, our worries, and our goals. Moments like this interrupt that pattern. They slow us down. They invite us to reflect, not just on the act itself, but on our own lives. They gently ask us to look around and see who might need help, comfort, or understanding. Long after the Christmas candles were blown out and the decorations packed away, the feeling of that moment lingered. It stayed with people because it wasn't just about one boy or one event. It was about the possibility. It raised a quiet but powerful question. If such a small act can travel so far and touch so many hearts, what could our own small acts do? Perhaps that is the true legacy of this moment. Not the headlines or the viral clips, but the challenge it leaves behind. A challenge to choose kindness when it's easier to look away, to believe that even the smallest gesture can matter, and to wonder, could one simple act of compassion, done today, ripple outward in ways we may never fully see, quietly reshaping how we treat one another long after the season has passed? Did Princess Catherine ever doubt Prince George's level of social intelligence? What concern has she had lately about Prince George's ability to relate well outside the palace? Let's talk about Princess Catherine's quiet worry. Preparing Prince George for life beyond the palace, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, now find themselves standing at one of the most defining moments any parent can face: choosing the right secondary school for their child. For most families, this decision is emotional, stressful, and deeply personal. For a family raising a future king, the pressure is multiplied many times over. Yet, behind the royal titles and global attention, this is still a mother and father weighing one essential question: where will their son truly grow into the person he is meant to be? Prince George, the couple's eldest child and second in line to the British throne, is approaching an age where his next school will shape not only his education, but his character, worldview, and sense of self. While Prince William is reportedly leaning toward Eton College, the prestigious all-boys boarding school he and Prince Harry once attended, Catherine is said to be far less convinced that tradition alone should guide such a crucial choice. Eton is steeped in royal history. For generations, it has produced prime ministers, leaders, and members of the royal family. To many, it seems like the obvious path, almost an expectation. But Catherine's concerns run deeper than reputation or legacy. She is thinking not only about the crown George will one day wear, but about the life he must live long before that day arrives. Catherine's own school years play a powerful role in how she sees this decision. She attended Marlborough College, a coeducational school where boys and girls learned together, formed friendships naturally, and experienced a wider range of social interactions. Those years, shared with her sister Pippa and brother James, helped shape her confidence, independence, and emotional strength. To Catherine, school was not just about lessons and exams. It was about learning how to relate to others, how to adapt, and how to stand on one's own feet. Sources close to the family suggest that Catherine worries Eton's highly traditional and enclosed environment may feel too narrow for George. She reportedly fears it could limit his exposure to the real world, a world far removed from palace routines and royal ceremonies. Her concern is not that Eton lacks academic excellence, but that it may not offer enough space for emotional growth, social flexibility, and everyday life skills. Catherine is said to be especially mindful of George's personality. She wants him to grow up understanding people from all walks of life, communicating with empathy, and developing the emotional intelligence needed to lead with compassion. In her eyes, a school should help him learn how to listen, collaborate, and adapt, not simply prepare him for power. Another important factor is family closeness. Catherine values the sense of stability that comes from growing up alongside siblings. A mixed-gender school would allow George to remain closer to Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, preserving the strong bond they currently share. She believes this family connection provides emotional grounding, something that will be essential as George's public responsibilities increase with age. At present, George attends Lamrook School with his younger siblings, enjoying a level of normal childhood that is rare for someone born into royalty. There, he plays football, laughs with friends, and experiences school life in a way that feels ordinary and safe. Catherine is said to treasure this sense of balance, especially following recent health challenges within the family, which have reinforced the importance of emotional well-being and stability. For Catherine, the heart of the matter is simple but profound. She wants her son to be prepared not just for the throne, but for life. She wants him to understand the world beyond palace gates, to move through it with humility, wisdom, and kindness. Her quiet worry is that without the right environment, George might grow up sheltered from the very realities he will one day be expected to serve. This decision, still unfolding, reveals a deeper truth about Catherine as a mother. She is not merely raising a future monarch, she is raising a human being, one who must learn how to live, relate, and lead in a world that demands far more than tradition alone can teach. So what do you think about George's action? Do you think his mother should have confidence in his ability? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.